African time. Stay tuned to Channel Africa. We will be having a boxing conversation in just a moment with the Boxing South Africa Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Tsholofelo Lejaka. Mr. Lejaka, a very good afternoon and a warm welcome to Africa at Play. Good afternoon, Mr. Lejaka. 15:30 Central African time.
My bad. I can hear you now, Neto.
Oh, lovely stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. We haven't spoken this year. Let me start by saying happy 2026. Wishing you nothing but good health and good wealth.
Happy 2026 to you, my brother, and to the listeners as well, viewers. Wishing you nothing but prosperity, health, and a whole lot of laughter.
Thank you so much indeed. Let's kick off the conversation with women's boxing. Yesterday, I was in Pretoria. I left, I think it was around 2300, if not minutes after, and witnessing a great evening of boxing highlighted by women's boxing in the title fight between Smangele Smash Hadebe and Sibulele Sobois. I'm hoping you were there. I got to see Mr. Ntlanganiso, but I never got to see you because there were just so many people there. And the Premier of Gauteng also graced the event, Minister Panyaza Lesufi, Premier Panyaza Lesufi rather. Let's talk about women's boxing, but what I've witnessed yesterday was heartwarming to see that you can have a boxing event that is highlighted by women in boxing.
No, most definitely. I didn't make it to the bout last evening. I've been in Nelspruit, came back just a few minutes ago. But I think the big thing about last evening is that not only do you have as athletes, women boxers, but most importantly, you have a tournament by a female promoter. And if, like we normally say it sloganically, nothing about us without us. When you've got promoters who are female, administrators who are female, it becomes easy for them to connect with the athletes and the talent because they understand the challenges our boxers are going through. And their touch towards putting the event together is a mother's touch. This is the second take of their promotions company, and I am confident that we are yet to see the best thereof. Pretoria East itself has had a lot of drought of boxing, and with now the emergence thereof, you are starting to see boxing coming back into Pretoria suburbs in a big way. So quite exciting. The feedback I've received from the team is positive, and we can only build up from there.
I just want to dive deep a little bit into what you've raised about, women in the space of boxing, because traditionally and historically so, this was a male-dominated sport. And with the women in boxing that we got to speak to, they've always raised that intimidation moving into the space of boxing with a history of male dominance. But we are starting to see great transformation in that space. Talk to us about the development that opens up doors in terms of opportunities for women in boxing, in terms of promoters, in terms of trainers, coaches, managers, administrators, to feel safe in the umbrella of boxing in South Africa and perhaps on the African continent as well, because what happens in South Africa, it spreads out to the entire continent.
I think the important thing to understand is that it's going to take an ecosystem for women in boxing to thrive. And by ecosystem, you need an existence of an enabling environment in totality, from a leadership point to a policy governance environment, systems, culture, but also you need practitioners that understand. So let's take it from what Boxing South Africa is doing. We've got a dedicated committee called the Women in Boxing Committee, which is led by a board member and has got a few female practitioners, renowned, accomplished, who understand the sport. They become the custodians of the agenda for female boxing. But then you also need a program which is underpinned by, firstly, an appreciation of the type of challenges that face the female boxer. South Africa has got its own history of oppression, but women have suffered what normally is called triple oppression, where mostly they suffered because of class, they suffered because of race, but they also suffered because of gender. You'll recall that boxing has been in the country from as early as 1921, but female boxing was only legalized in 2001. So you need dedicated programs that seek to empower your female boxers. So from that point of view, there's a dedicated fund which the National Department of Sport, Arts and Culture put aside through conditional grant to provinces. Each province has 300,000, meant solely to create opportunities for women in boxing competitions. But also, you need an environment that protects the vulnerable, something that we call safeguarding. So you need policies that a woman knows that if for whatever reason I feel harassed in the gym where I'm at, there's a policy that protects me, and there's a way that I can escalate where I will find favorable audience that understands my plight, so that even those that are perpetrators must never try to take a chance. But then again, you need to send a message that's positive, so that you create female role models, and that girl child in a school somewhere, in a community somewhere, can look up and see Smash Kharebe doing what she does and say, I too want to be a Smash when I grow up. Then you need understanding, and as we correct, the regulations, some of these things have been raised, that you need the laws that are lenient towards women specifically, whether it's through pre-medical arrangements, whether it's through weigh-ins. So those are the total basket of what we will call our Women in Boxing Action Plan, which is driven by the Women in Boxing Committee, to ensure that we continue to grow our pool of women boxers. And the pool is growing. I mean, out of the total population that we have, in excess of 10% now are female boxers. The challenge is that there's not enough talent within each weight division to create exciting bouts. But the few bouts that we have, you too would have been a witness judging out of yesterday's tournament, electrifying, able to hold their own. And you are starting to see more and more women now headlining bills where also male boxers are at. So the pace is there. It's not really as fast as we would have loved it to be, but the direction remains positive.
If you have just joined us, we are talking all things African boxing with the Chief Executive Officer of Boxing South Africa, Mr. Tsholofelo Lejaka. Mr. Lejaka, let's talk about boxing as a business, because we live in modern times where sport has changed from just a form of entertainment, but it is a business in a sense that athletes have to get a financial reward. Also considering that a career in any sport is a short career, we also need to look at issues like financial security for these athletes, but also focusing on restoring governance, stability, rebuilding trust with sponsors. That is undoubtedly not a child's play. What's happening in that space?
I think for this type of conversation, we might need to refer to the National Boxing Convention we had on the 20th to 21st of February last year at East London. That convention focused on five key areas. And out of the five key, sorry man, my apologies for that. I've connected through a cell phone because of network problems, so an incoming call disrupted.
No problem.
Are we still together?
Yes, we're still together.
Okay, so for us to get to that, we need to look at that. Now, the first major thing that we spoke about was commercialization, making the business commercially profitable by putting compelling products where value proposition on its own is able to talk the language and hold for itself in the boardroom. We'll come to that. The second one is the governance and regulatory environment, making sure that there's good governance, there's clean governance. And as you do that, you are able to increase your trust index. Thirdly, ensuring that our talent development pathway from cradle to grave is understood. So our interface, for example, with the amateur arm, Sanabo, becomes very important, because the talent that ultimately we showcase as professional boxing, we get it from the open boxing ranks. That's the third one. The fourth one is what we call inclusion, just ensuring that your female boxer finds space, but at the same time, we also grow the sport in nodal areas where it is currently not doing well. Areas like your non-Cape, for example. Then the fifth and the last is what we call modernization, ensuring that boxing is modern. I mean, anything that doesn't grow dies. The sport has become shorter, has become faster. There's modified versions of the sport. As we speak right now, our boxing is archaic. We still have not modernized. And that is why part of the things that we are doing through the amendment of the regulations is to ensure that there is vertical, upward, and horizontal mobility within the sport. At the moment, if you are 35 years, you retire. After 2 years, you can't come back. But boxers retire and come back anytime, and that's what makes it that exciting. If you are in a champion in one division and you want to challenge a champion in another division, by virtue of you being the champion, you are supposed to be able to do that. Now, all these things ultimately must talk to the product that builds a fan base. With one of the biggest criticism that we level against ourselves is who is the boxing fan? Because remember, the money that fuels the sport is in the pockets of the fans. If our product does not bring us fans, it has no appeal. And that's what we are working on, improving the quality of the tournaments. I'm sure if you look at, for example, yesterday's tournament, you would have seen. If you come back to the tournament of the 28th of May, Emperor's Palace, you would see, because we're putting pressure on our promoters that, guys, we can't put up product which when you watch on TV, you're going to feel like I might as well switch channels and focus somewhere else. But at the same time, the type of training that our boxers are taken through to make them warriors and gladiators that are worthy of the eyeballs that must watch them. And then in putting all this together, there's something which in Boxing South Africa we call our revenue generation strategy. So this revenue generation strategy basically talks to that how do we commercialize the sport of boxing in a way that makes it broadcast worthy, but at the same time that is exciting, that is intriguing, that is choreographed in a way that creates consistency. So in the next financial year that we are going to, starting from the 1st of April, there's something I need you to keep an eye on, the Steve Tshwete Boxing League, which is going to be a BSA-led league working with promoters, but having a predictable calendar of events with a storyline that runs right across the series, leading to the ultimate winners of that league. So literally, you are going to now start seeing 9 different tournaments that are part of a single series, led by Boxing South Africa through financial assistance of the department, working with all licensees. And at the same time, also, you want to start seeing that more and more of our promoters are starting to tap into these storylines that makes the sport intriguing, that creates suspense and make you want to see the next. For example, Aquil Boxing Promotion by Kevin Lorena has got something they've got up the sleeve. I'm not at liberty to divulge the details, but I'm sure I can whet your appetite and say, watch the space. Those type of things are coming, because as they come and the broadcasters come, and the eyeballs grow, sponsors will follow that, because remember, ultimately, this is about consumer connectedness. If the sport does not connect you to the consumer, it is not worthy of you putting money on. So we understand it in that perspective, and those are the things that we are working on at the moment.
That's the voice of Mr. Tsholofelo Lejaka, who is the current Chief Executive Officer, CEO of Boxing South Africa. Mr. Lejaka, please do stay on the line. We take a short break. We'll wrap up our conversation shortly.
Thank you, sir.
Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Channel Africa 1060. 6 decades of stories, voices, and vision. Africa at Play with Neto and Neto Muyane.
15:44 Central African Time. A very warm welcome to Africa at Play. If you have just joined us, we are together until 5 p.m. Central African Time. We are still blessed with the presence of the Chief Executive Officer, CEO of Boxing South Africa, BSA, Mr. Tsholofelo Lejaka, talking all things boxing on the African continent. Mr. Lejaka, you've touched on some of the highlights in terms of the calendar for 2026. What else is interesting in that calendar that's still coming up that perhaps you haven't touched on?
I'm going to just give you the broad themes. I will not go to the specific year plan activities, but from a Boxing South Africa point, 2025-26 was really a year of conceptualization, internal repairs, servicing the vehicle and ensuring that it's ready for the road. 2026-27, we're going to be hitting the road in a big way. What are the big things there? One, officiating. I'm tired, honestly, of the type of complaints that we are getting about the quality of some of our ring officials. And it's something that we can't lament on for good. We need to start taking drastic decisions, and there's going to be a lot of changes that are coming that way to ensure that we build credibility and we silence the voices that are constantly complaining about the outcomes. So that's the one thing. Two, Boxing Academy. Boxing South Africa has not been training its licensees in a long time. We train minimally and we train for compliance. But there's a lot of things that if you want to build a sport, you need to build practitioners that are capable, competent, and who are properly graded, accredited, and there's clarity of who is who in the big scheme of things. So of academy, we started working on it, and it's going to tie back to things like officiating that I'm talking about. 3, I've already touched on the Steve Tshwete Boxing League. 4, there's an issue that you touched on about the livelihood of athletes. So you'll remember that previously Minister made an announcement that he wanted us to zoom into the minimum living wage in boxing, ensuring that not only do promoters pay a stipulated minimum for passes for boxers and payments for ring officials, but there's also a component of government subsidy that comes into that. That thing will be taking off in the next financial year, no doubt about that. And then lastly, just ensuring that our integrated broadcast strategy is starting to shape up. So we have depended for a long time on SuperSport, we have depended for a long time on SABC, but not only terrestrial TV is a reality, digitally, we need to start growing our footprint there to ensure that no tournament goes without some broadcast means through which even those that are not in the hall are still able to follow on what is happening in the sport. So I've just given you a few of the things that would be key in the next financial year, ensuring that our academy training of officials is taking place, ensuring that the Steve Tshwete League, ensuring that the minimum living wage, and also the different partnerships that we've had and we've been working on, I think will start to be in shape. But quite honestly, if I were to give this coming year a name, is the year of the school, the year of academy. Our partnership with the different tertiary institutions is going to have to come to the rescue, because honestly, we haven't for a long time abandoned that critical component of ensuring that we train, and we, out of that training, we create competent, accredited, and reliable practitioners.
Mr. Lejaka, with an incredible plan that you've tabled, what conversations are you having on the continental stage with relevant stakeholders to make certain that when South Africa prospers and people are saying, wow, big ups to the executive of Boxing South Africa for the tremendous work that they've done? Of course, it's not an overnight achievement. It's a journey that requires time. But let Africa also prosper and not have a scenario where South Africa remains the celebrity country on the African continent. You can name any nationality from the 53 African countries. Everyone is represented in South Africa. And I'm thinking the narrative has to change. Africa also has to develop the same way as South Africa is prospering.
Let me give you an example, and I'm excited about this question. We've got, I will not name the boxers, but a South African boxer go and fight in Tanzania without a clearance letter from Boxing South Africa. In a normal run of business, if a boxer decides to end up in Tanzania to try his luck and fight there without a clearance letter, Tanzania is the one that's supposed to say, no, you can't fight here. Where's Lejaka's signature on your papers? But that is not happening. What does it mean? A weak Africa will have a way that it also affects South Africa. So we have invested consciously in ensuring that we strengthen the region. Our relationship with Namibia, around the 18, 19 August, Namibia was in the country. helping to induct their board. We were supposed in December to go to Botswana to assist them again, but also to draw best lessons from what they do. So we've got a pending trilateral with Namibia, Botswana, and South Africa. That conversation is already ongoing. Zimbabwe was supposed to come to us in September last year. They have just postponed. The president of Malawi, Mr. Zimba, he was here in the country in August. Whenever he's here, we host him. What are we trying to do? These bilaterals must ultimately build towards a multilateral convention of African boxing control boards. This is not new. It's something that we did in 2018, something that we call SAPCO, Southern African Boxing Convention. Took place here in Boksburg. I think it was May of 2018. This is something that is also in the calendar for the coming year, because if we do not have a standardized governance framework for boxing governance in the continent, you are going to have a problem where some scanty medical records are brought into the country and they are purported to have been signed off in Zimbabwe when that is not the case. So there's a lot of work that we have to do, but our attitude is that we want to have a seamless framework for governance across the continent and to ensure that you do not have Africa being taken for granted by some of the scrupulous governing control boards, not really control boards, but boxing sanctioning bodies, which if they don't find joy in South Africa, they can go and do as they please in Zimbabwe or in Zambia. So that conversation is ongoing. It's something that has happened in the past, and we will be bringing it back. SAPCO, the Southern African Boxing Convention, because as you said, South Africa is the entry point into Africa. So the role that we need to play must not only be about strengthening ourselves, but must also be about ensuring that the strength that we have is shared with the rest of the countries, more especially those that, by their own admission, have said to us that South Africa, on this one, you are 2 or 3 steps ahead of us. Please help lead us on this one. And even ourselves, where we are lacking, we will draw lessons from our sister countries in the continent. Thank you.
It is an exciting conversation that can go on for hours, if not days, if not weeks, if not months, if not years, because all we want to see is a prosperous Africa when it comes to the umbrella of different sporting codes. That is Mr. Tsholofelo Lejaka, the Chief Executive Officer, CEO of Boxing South Africa. Mr. Lejaka, thank you so much for your time. I want to continue, but the clock keeps saying no.
Thank you very much for the time, Neto. I appreciate you, my brother. And pleasant Sunday to the viewers at home as well.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely afternoon further. 15:53 Central African Time. That brings us to the wrap-up of our boxing hour, where we also got to speak to the legendary boxing promoter, Rodney Permane, earlier in this hour. Let's now take a short break.
Weekends